In the darkest recesses of our mind, there's a chilling tale waiting to be told. A web of cryptic enigmas cloaked in shadow and obscured by the blinding lights of the ordinary. Welcome, brave souls, to the initiation of the journey through the ominous mystery of the missing 411 phenomenon. What, you ask, is this cryptic code, this missing 411? Across the vast expanse of North America, in its serene national parks, historic landmarks, winding roadways, and the silent gaping maws of its caves, people vanish. Vanish without a trace, leaving behind a trail of questions and fear. And these aren't just ordinary disappearances. These are circumstances so bewildering, so perplexing, that even attempting to guess their cause might send shivers down the stoutest of spines. This tale is not for the faint-hearted, for as you delve deeper into this saga, you'll realize that this isn't just a standalone horror. Oh no, it's an expanding series of mind-boggling events, each more puzzling than the last. So brace yourselves, seekers of the truth, as we embark on this spine-chilling expedition into the heart of American terror. But my friends, I am merely the storyteller, an enthusiast, a hobbyist, if you will, who delves into the pages of this mysterious phenomenon, trying to extract its secrets. I have relayed these tales to countless, but my knowledge is, after all, acquired. However, among us today, we have a sentinel of truth, a warrior who doesn't just glean from tales, but has been on the very front lines, challenging the very institutions we trust, to unearth the dark truths. My esteemed compatriot, the relentless Maxwell Callahan. He's not just another voice in the cacophony. He's an expert, the beacon that lights up the mysteries of missing 411. But wait, who's this Maxwell, you wonder? Ah, a scholar, a connoisseur of the arcane. Be it history, folklore, the eerie realm of the paranormal, or the doctrines of religion. But above all, he's an authority on the missing 411 enigma. When I approached him, his first reaction showcased the fiery passion he holds for his work. A jest perhaps, for in truth, our camaraderie runs deep, with a shared fervor for the unexplained. Without further ado, I shall step aside, letting the maestro himself delineate the intricacies that demarcate a disappearance as a 411 case. For these aren't your run-of-the-mill vanishings. Oh no. When the explanations run dry, when the logical gives way to the baffling, when the clues point towards the abyss of the inexplicable, that's when it earns the chilling tag of a 411 case, and the architect behind the missing 411 nomenclature. The man who first shone a light on this rabbit hole, David Politz. His motive? To provide information, a desperate cry for understanding amidst the chaos, just as you dial 411 for answers. But sometimes, the answers we seek might just be the things nightmares are made of. The codename, Missing 411, isn't just a random assortment of numbers and words. It's a siren call echoing through the catacombs of mystery. In its essence, it translates to missing information. A cryptic message sent out by the cosmos, perhaps, beckoning those brave enough to uncover the unfathomable. This information isn't a mere collection of facts. It's the unresolved truth behind the heart-wrenching tales of those who either met chillingly bizarre fates, were claimed by the cold grip of death, or worse, vanished into oblivion leaving no trace. David Politz, the sentinel behind this haunting term, meticulously crafted what he calls profile points to help us navigate this enigmatic maze. These are patterns, eerie coincidences, clues that might unlock the key to the puzzle. Not every victim adheres to every one of these eerie markers, but many, terrifyingly so, do. Prepare yourselves as we unveil these harrowing commonalities that shadow these perplexing disappearances. Our brave sleuth, Maxwell, will serve as your guide on this journey into the abyss. Drawing from his vast repository of knowledge, he will enumerate the primary profile points, weaving real-world instances into the narrative to provide a chilling, grounded perspective. In the sprawling landscapes of North America, certain regions, it seems, harbor malevolent energies, with multiple cases clustered in singular, concentrated areas. Astoundingly, 52 of these haunting clusters scar the land across the U.S. and Canada. But the enigmas don't end there. These disappearances predominantly occur within the deceptive serenity of national parks. Victims often experience unsettling elevation shifts, from valleys to mountaintops, as if transported by unseen forces. The tranquil faces of lakes and rivers conceal another piece of the puzzle, with many incidents occurring by their shores. And then, there's the strange pull of berry shrubs and boulder fields, the latter often composed of granite. These aren't just innocent terrains, they're potential epicenters of these mysterious vanishings. Those fortunate, or perhaps cursed, to return, often exhibit inexplicable amnesia. Their minds wiped clean of the harrowing ordeal they've just survived. Their clothing, either missing or in tatters, defying rational explanations like weather or environmental conditions. Even the expert tracking skills of bloodhounds prove futile in these cases. It's as if the very earth swallowed these souls, leaving no trace of their passage. Disturbingly, children often find themselves caught in this web of unexplained disappearances, sharing spine-chilling commonalities. As we further unravel these patterns, an uncanny revelation emerges. A significant number of the disappeared share German ancestry, coincidence, or a deeper connection waiting to be unearthed. Our enigmatic expert, Maxwell, will continue to be your Sherpa throughout this harrowing exploration. If his insights intrigue you, consider delving deeper into his sanctum, the Lore Lodge. There, accompanied by yours truly, we embark on quests into other realms of the unknown on the Weird Bible podcast. Consider this a mere prelude, a primer to what's to come. In upcoming revelations, we'll group together spine-tingling instances, seeking commonalities, patterns, maybe even a sinister design. But before diving deeper into these mysterious waters, both Maxwell and I wish to present instances that have particularly shaken our cores. Maxwell will recount the mysterious elevation phenomena where victims are seemingly relocated by invisible hands. Case in point, the unnerving tale of Bobby Bishop. Young Bobby's world was upturned during a simple camping trip in the Rocky Mountain National Park. An innocent fishing excursion by a stream, and in the blink of an eye, he was nowhere to be found. Just when the call for dinner echoed across the camp, Bobby, it seemed, was beckoned by a call far more sinister. In the shadowy maze of the missing 411, names etched themselves into its walls. Names of individuals whose stories are not just footnotes but chapters of unsolved mysteries. Among them stands Bobby Bice. As the story unfolds, one of the counselors of the ill-fated Rocky Mountain National Park trip recounts the last time he saw young Bobby. On the mountain's slope, as the golden hues of the setting sun danced upon its surface, Bobby was seen climbing down, fishing rod in hand. But as soon as they descended to the mountain's base, Bobby, like a phantom, was nowhere in sight. Frantic searches were conducted, looking for a sign, a clue, anything that would lead them to Bobby. However, destiny had a cruel twist in store. Miles away from his last known location, and shockingly higher up the mountain, the chilling remnants of Bobby's existence were discovered. Heartbreakingly, all that remained were his hearing aids, fragments of his clothing, and shards of his skeletal remains. The enigma of missing 411 isn't always defined by what's missing, but sometimes by what's found. This chilling truth is exemplified in the mysterious case of Charles McCullar. The year was 1974, and young Charles, an 18-year-old passionate about the wilderness, was no stranger to the hiking trails of the Northwest United States. Over a span of a year, he would frequently embark on solitary journeys to remote terrains, capturing the beauty of the wild through his lens before returning to the embrace of civilization. It was this unyielding spirit of adventure that led Charles, now 19, to declare to his peers his intent to explore the rugged landscapes of Crater Lake National Park in Oregon. His plan was simple: spend 2 days in nature's lap and return. But when 3 days rolled by without a word from Charles, alarm bells began to ring. The police were alerted, and an investigation was set into motion. The threads of Charles's last known moments began to unravel. A park ranger recollected giving Charles a ride on January 30th, dropping him off at the trail's entrance. Other reports speculated sightings of him, from being spotted at a location 45 minutes away by car, to him battling through a daunting 5-foot snowdrift. Yet, the only testimony that held water was the ranger's account. The search for Charles became a race against nature, as a recent snowstorm had blanketed the area under 12 formidable feet of snow, turning the landscape into an impenetrable white fortress. However, what was even more baffling was the unexpected involvement of the FBI in this search. Traditionally, their involvement signified suspicions of kidnapping or foul play. Yet, in Charles's case, there seemed to be no clear justification. This only deepened the mystery. For months, the land remained silent, holding onto its secrets. No trace of Charles was found. But nature, in its mysterious ways, decided to release a clue. In October 1976, almost 2 years post his disappearance, fate led 2 hikers to a solitary backpack nestled amidst the woods. 12 miles from where Charles began his journey, this backpack held the keys to his Volkswagen, a beacon to his last known location. This discovery reignited the search. By the haunting currents of Bybee Creek, Charles's remains were eventually found. But here, the narrative took an eerie turn. Perched on a log were Charles's jeans, standing upright as if invisibly worn. Astonishingly, apart from the socks tucked neatly within the jeans, there was no other sign of clothing. The scene painted a chilling picture. Charles, who clearly wouldn't venture into these woods with only jeans on, seemed to have been divested of his other clothing. The belt and buttons of the jeans were undone, hinting at a voluntary act. But by whom? And why? The answer remains shrouded in mystery. The next chapter in this unsettling tapestry of mysteries hails from the chilling findings in Charles McCullar's case. Let us cast our minds back to those 2 socks tucked neatly within Charles's jeans. These seemingly mundane pieces of clothing bore gruesome testimony to the fate of the young hiker. Each sock encased fragments of feet bones, and within the folds of those same jeans lay snapped shin bones. A few steps away from that eerie spot, about 12 feet to be precise, lay a fragmented tableau of skeletal remains, weathered by time and the elements. Despite the challenges posed by decomposition and the wear of time, dental records allowed for a positive identification, confirming it as Charles McCullar. But this discovery, while crucial, brought with it more unanswered questions than closure. None of his belongings, the equipment he used to document the wilderness, the boots he wore for his treks, or any other pieces of clothing, were found. What's even more confounding is that Charles' remains were discovered in an area so remote, so off the beaten path, that it challenges logic and reason. Given the snowy impediments at the time of his disappearance, how could he have possibly journeyed to such an inaccessible location? The site had been recommended for searches initially, but was dismissed due to its inaccessibility, even to snowmobiles and equipped search teams. Theories abound about what might have led to his tragic fate. Some point to paradoxical undressing, a phenomenon where individuals in states of extreme thermal distress strip off their clothes. While this could explain Charles's state of undress, the mystery remains as to why parts of his legs were still entombed within his jeans, and the riddle deepens when pondering the whereabouts of his boots and the peculiar positioning of his jeans, standing upright as if untouched by trauma. Adding to the enigma are stories of young children who, against all odds, end up in locations that are physically impossible for them to reach. Take, for instance, the baffling tale of Keith Parkins. Aged just 2, Keith went missing from Ritter, Oregon, a place nestled near the Umatilla National Forest. On that fateful day, he played outside with his siblings on the family's vast cattle ranch. The alarm was raised when lunchtime calls were met with his conspicuous absence. The search for young Keith led to an almost unbelievable discovery. Hours into the search, footprints were found 4 miles away from his home. Pursuing these tiny footprints, the searchers found Keith the following day, lying face down, his little body marred with scratches but miraculously alive. This toddler had somehow journeyed a staggering 12 miles in less than a day. When asked about the origin of his scratches, he vaguely referenced a cat, but offered no explanation for his bewildering journey. In an attempt to debunk or verify this perplexing feat, Lestrade, a survivalist, tried replicating Keith's trek. Yet even he, an expert in his field, couldn't complete the journey that Keith did, underscoring just how improbable Keith's ordeal was. But the missing 411 mysteries are not just confined to forested terrains. Swamps, another profile point in the series of unexplained disappearances, present their own brand of mysteries. In 2010, a case that stirred considerable consternation was that of Rowan Grifton, who inexplicably vanished into the heart of a swamp, leaving behind a trail of questions and very few answers. As we delve deeper into the enigma of these mysterious disappearances, we come across the perplexing case of Rowan Grifton. At a mere 2 years old, he managed to baffle everyone around him with an inexplicable journey. It all started at a family gathering at his grandmother's residence, located in close proximity to the Barton State Wildlife Management Area. While not a national forest, this state wildlife management area has its own unique complexities. Indeed, these areas in New York have been notorious for their reticence. During investigations into another missing person, Tom Messick, state officials remained tight-lipped. On that fateful day, Rowan's distraction was a simple one, a playful cat. As the feline scampered into the woods, the child, drawn by its movements, pursued it. His absence soon became evident, and a search was immediately launched. Despite concerted efforts by family and later the authorities, he remained elusive as the day drew to a close. Safety concerns and diminishing hopes of progress led to a reluctant halt in the search. Dawn brought renewed vigor, and the search teams fanned out again. But it wasn't the primary group that found Rowan. A splinter group, driven by intuition or perhaps sheer luck, decided to venture 3 miles off to a swampy region. And there, to their astonishment, they found Rowan, clutching a tree in the midst of a pond too deep and vast for a toddler to have swum across. Even more baffling was his dry state. When queried about his baffling position, Rowan's narrative veered to the surreal. He spoke of being frightened by cows, driving him to the tree he was found on. Yet no trace of cattle was found in the vicinity. The mysteries only compounded with Rowan's lack of clarity on his journey. Yet, the missing 411 enigmas are not confined to young and vulnerable victims. Oftentimes, they ensnare even the most experienced and prepared. A chilling testament to this fact is the case of Aaron Hedges. This man was no stranger to the wild. He frequently navigated a mountain range, rather ominously named the Crazies, a section of the northern Rocky Mountains in Montana. His passion for the great outdoors saw him embark on numerous expeditions, often in the company of friends. On September 3, 2014, Aaron, then 38, commenced another of these adventures, setting out on a hunting trip with 2 companions. Expertly equipped and familiar with the terrain, the trio used horses for travel and a mule to carry their gear. Such was their proficiency that they had even marked out specific trails, creating waypoints stocked with supplies and camping essentials. 2 days into their journey, a minor mishap occurred. The mule, possibly startled by some unknown element in the wilderness, jerked suddenly. This caused Aaron's sleeping bag to tumble down the mountainside. This, one would think, should have been a minor inconvenience for someone like Aaron. After all, they had the foresight to set up stocked waypoints. Thus, Aaron decided to journey alone to one such waypoint, near Sunlight Lake, a path he knew like the back of his hand. Armed with a myriad of tools, including a GPS, walkie-talkie, cell phone, bow and arrow, and a firearm, he confidently assured his companions of his return by nightfall. But as darkness shrouded the Rockies, there was no sign of Aaron. An initial lack of concern soon turned into anxiety. His companion's attempts to track him through GPS failed initially, and when it did finally give a location, it was bewildering. Aaron was miles away, in a region far removed from their marked trail. The weight of this realization bore heavily on the two. Despite all precautions, all expertise, their friend had vanished into the wilderness. The mountains, it seemed, held secrets deeper than anyone could fathom. The events that transpired following Aaron Hedges' perplexing disappearance were filled with an uncanny mix of hope, bafflement, and grim discovery. After the realization of Aaron's inexplicable absence, his two friends, burdened with concern and guilt, quickly descended from the mountainous terrain to apprise Aaron's wife of the unfolding situation. In her distress, she sought the assistance of law enforcement, heralding the commencement of a large-scale search on September 8th. This was no ordinary search. The mountainous expanse echoed with the roars of helicopters, while infrared cameras pored over the cold ground, attempting to catch a whisper of warmth that might belong to Aaron. Around 20 dog teams, with their handlers, meticulously combed every possible nook and cranny. These efforts, however, bore no fruit on that first day. The following day, the search teams made an intriguing discovery, yet it only seemed to deepen the mystery surrounding Aaron's whereabouts. On their route to the designated search area, they stumbled upon a makeshift campfire. Nearby lay a pack of cigarettes, an empty water bladder, and curiously, a pair of hiking boots lined up with precision. Each of these items was unmistakably identified as Aaron's. The boots particularly stood out. They were placed as though Aaron had methodically removed them, seemingly undisturbed by the biting Montana cold. Even more perplexingly, this entire scene was found in a location that had been thoroughly examined the previous day. Trying to piece together a logical sequence of events became an exercise in futility. Aaron's GPS readings showed movement in one direction, but this campsite contradicted that data. How had he moved past the search parties without being noticed? Why would he discard his boots, given the brutal conditions, and attempt a barefoot trek? Furthermore, the expert dog teams, with their keen olfactory senses, found not a whiff of Aaron's trail. Despite this seeming breakthrough, the search continued without further significant findings. The case took another bizarre twist in June 2015, when an independent hiker stumbled upon Aaron's backpack. It contained a miscellany of items: a cell phone, hunting vest, extra clothing, hunting license, and several granola bar wrappers, all conclusively linked to Aaron. But perhaps the most surreal discovery lay a short distance away. Perched atop a rock was a thermos alongside an open energy drink, both confirmed as Aaron's possessions by his family. This spot offered a panoramic view of a ranch below, and the positioning of the thermos and drink suggested that Aaron had perhaps sat there, observing the road and ranch below, lost in thought. Months transformed into another year, and while hope dwindled, the mountain had one final revelation to make. Aaron's skeletal remains were unearthed about half a mile from where his last set of belongings was found. The distance also placed him about 6 miles from the peculiar campfire spot and approximately 15 miles from where he was last seen by his friends. Adding to the enigma was the proximity of his remains to a frequently used road and the very ranch he may have been observing. Forensic analysis on the skeletal remains was inconclusive. There were no signs of trauma, injuries, or any discernible cause of death. His bones held no secrets to the circumstances of his demise. Thus, the tale of Aaron Hedges, the seasoned hiker, remained shrouded in mystery. He had embarked on a familiar trail, only to seemingly veer off course, traverse in seemingly irrational patterns, and finally settle on a mountaintop for a quiet moment of reflection, before leaving behind only traces of his passage. Aaron Hedges' mysterious end was intensified by the small details surrounding his final known activities. It appears that prior to his demise, Aaron revitalized himself with energy drinks and consumed granola bars, which perhaps sustained him during his bewildering journey. And yet, despite this boost of nourishment and energy, he tragically met his end a mere half-mile from a nearby road. Such cases elicit a flurry of speculations, with some netizens even proposing that Aaron had transitioned into an alternate dimension. While these theories might appear outlandish, the case of Aaron does compel one to ponder about the myriad mysteries that the wilderness holds, and what transpires in those secluded terrains when the human gaze is absent. While Aaron's story is undoubtedly perplexing, there are other cases that similarly confound the rational mind and challenge conventional explanations. A few notable ones include Morris Dr. Metz. Morris, an elderly man of 82 with mobility challenges, vanished during a topaz hunting expedition in Pike National Forest. Despite being merely 50 yards away from a companion, he inexplicably disappeared during a short span between check-ins. Authorities and searchers found it implausible that someone of his age and physical state could have wandered off on his own, and equally, there was no concrete motive for foul play. Eric Lewis. While scaling the icy terrains of Mount Rainier, Eric Lewis disappeared without a trace. Friends, expecting to feel the tautness of his tether during their climb, were met with an unsettling slack. All that was eventually found was his climbing gear and clothing within a small ice cave down the mountainside. The cave provided no further clues, making Eric's disappearance all the more puzzling. Paul LeMay. Paul's disappearance during the Mount Marathon race in Kenai Fjords National Park is both confounding and tragic. Despite being the last participant and being spotted near the finish line by crew members, Paul simply vanished without a trace. Despite extensive searches, no sign of him was found, leaving the mountain with its silent secret. Bart Schleyer. In the remote reaches of Reed's Lake in the Yukon Territory, a landscape so isolated it requires aerial travel, Bart Schleyer's mysterious disappearance continues to haunt many. After arriving via an amphibious plane, Bart set up camp and awaited the pilot's return. Yet when the pilot came back, Bart was gone. Oddly, his food supplies remained untouched, and a bag at his campsite seemed to suggest he'd been waiting there not long ago. Given Bart's renowned expertise as a hunter, including tracking formidable Siberian tigers, it's hard to fathom that a bear or another predator could catch him off guard. Moreover, the untouched food casts doubt on animal predation as a cause. These perplexing cases, along with many others under the missing 411 banner, stand as stark reminders of the enigmatic nature of uncharted terrains and the inexplicable events that can occur within them. The wilderness, with all its majesty and beauty, sometimes cloaks mysteries that defy understanding. To cap off this exploration into such baffling disappearances, it's essential to note that while many cases can eventually find some semblance of closure, others remain unsolved riddles, echoing unanswered questions into the vastness of the great unknown. In the expansive lore of the missing 411 mysteries, the case of Garrett Bardsley holds a haunting position, primarily due to its perplexing circumstances. On the fateful day of August 20th, 2004, the youthful Garrett, at the tender age of 12, embarked on what was meant to be an innocuous Boy Scouts camping expedition alongside his father. This sojourn led them to the tranquil environs of the Uinta Mountains of Utah, specifically a known spot dubbed as Cubit One Lake. One might imagine that most of the cases discussed thus far pertain to seasoned adventurers venturing deep into the heart of untamed wilderness, or unprepared souls ensnared by nature's unpredictable temperaments. However, Garrett's scenario deviates from this narrative. The site chosen for their camping escapade was akin to a well-curated park, replete with delineated lots intended for groups to set up camp. It was a haven for novice campers, especially those embarking on their inaugural Boy Scout outing. The meticulously etched trails, reminiscent of sidewalks, offered an easy traverse. Furthermore, Garrett, despite his age, had already acquired wilderness survival training. Thus, one would expect that any unforeseen incident in such a setting would be effortlessly navigable for him. As fate would have it, while Garrett and his father indulged in fishing beside the lake, a mere downhill stroll from their campsite, Garrett had an unfortunate slip that drenched his pants and shoes. Opting for comfort, he resolved to return to their tent to change into dry clothes, assuring his father of his swift return. Given the proximity of the campsite, which was approximately 200 feet away, and the clarity of the trails, Garrett's father felt little apprehension. The sole obscurity was a cluster of trees, which might have impeded a direct line of sight from the lake's edge to their camping spot. In a display of paternal caution, his father even kept a watchful eye on Garrett till the tree line enveloped him. By that point, Garrett would have been a mere 50 feet or so from the tent. However, the tranquility of the day took a somber turn when, after a 20-minute interval, Garrett's conspicuous absence began to nag at his father's senses. A quick check at the camp revealed a disturbing reality. Garrett had never arrived. It's unfathomable to imagine that in the brief duration when Garrett meandered through the tree line, an event or entity lured or forced him astray from the well-trodden path. What ensued was a frenzied search, culminating in the unsettling discovery of one of Garrett's damp socks, half a mile off the trail, nestled amidst a granite boulder field. The enigma deepens when considering that the main road was only a quarter-mile from this location, surrounded by myriad campsites and paths. It seemed as if Garrett, or whatever entity might have had him in its grasp, was deliberately evading human presence. Even with exhaustive search measures involving canine units, horseback riders, and several volunteers, no trace of Garrett, including the fishing pole he had with him, was ever uncovered. Today, Garrett Bardsley's perplexing disappearance is epitomized by a solitary, wet sock in a vast rocky expanse. Like many other cases under the missing 411 banner, Garrett's story challenges the boundaries of our comprehension. While not every case in this category defies explanation, the lingering mysteries, such as Garrett's, continually beckon us to ponder the unfathomable facets of our world. As we delve deeper into these perplexing 411 mysteries, one can't help but entertain a myriad of theories attempting to elucidate the myriad disappearances. One could argue, rather simplistically, that many of these victims were merely overzealous hikers who miscalculated their prowess or naively wandered and were subsequently claimed by the merciless clutches of nature. Yet this rather linear hypothesis falters when faced with peculiar findings or the inexplicable conditions of some remains discovered. There are those who speculate a more sinister human element at play, a concealed serial killer, or, more dramatically, a police force covering up heinous acts they'd rather not have on official records. Yet, in cases analogous to Aaron Hedges, if one was to entertain the idea of a murderer, the lingering question remains: how did the perpetrator evade the keen eyes of search teams, manage to place remains in such remote locales, and leave behind a trail of baffling evidence? It's intriguing, if not unsettling, how quickly these conversations veer towards whispers of government conspiracies. Some contend these disappearances have the dark shadow of projects like MK Ultra looming over them. Tales abound of clandestine government installations concealed deep within the wilderness, where unfortunate souls who stumble upon them meet mysterious ends. Such theories might appear outlandish at first glance, but given the enigmatic tales we've dissected and those yet to be unveiled, they often resonate as eerily plausible. My intrigue often sways towards tales where the afflicted are consumed by acute paranoia or delirium. While we can anatomically and psychologically comprehend the phenomenon of an individual succumbing to hysteria, the truly captivating question is, what cryptic force within these woods has the potency to unhinge a mind so swiftly? While predatory wildlife might account for some disappearances, they don't provide an all-encompassing explanation. The perplexing discovery of bones, snug within intact clothing, defies the logic of known predators. Thus, we're drawn back into the realm of the unknown. Could there be creatures or entities beyond our knowledge? Dwelling on these stories, my mind is often transported to ancient legends rooted in the Rocky and Appalachian Mountains. Tales of beguiling siren spirits that ensnare men, luring them deep into the forests, or nocturnal entities that whisk individuals away, only to have them discovered in horrifying states later. Whether these tales speak of actual siren spirits or cryptic woodland creatures, the chilling fact remains that if they were responsible then, they might still lurk now. I often reminisce about my childhood, where forests were a sanctuary, a benevolent friend, and not an enigma. The familiarity, for me, dispelled any inherent fear, but it's essential to remember that every forest is teeming with life, from the towering trees and the vibrant flora to the myriad fauna that calls it home. It's a pulsating entity, and every breath one takes within it feels charge. One must always tread with respect. Failing to do so might result in becoming the next eerie tale. At the heart of our trepidation lies the fear of the unknown. It's the inexplicable nature of these stories that rattles our psyche and leaves us restless. Familiar as I am with the forest's enigma, I never want to overlook its captivating odor. As a side note, and a rather personal revelation, some of you might have noticed a shift in my ambience. As much as the forests have been a haven, the vast ocean is a realm I've always found daunting. Yet here I am, narrating this by its shore, amplifying my discomfort by choosing the veil of night. Here I stand, at the confluence of my greatest fears, and I must admit, I am far from comfortable. Immersed in the mysteries of the woods, discussing their inscrutable tales, doesn't unnerve me as much. My upbringing in the heart of nature, among the woods, lends me a familiarity, an almost innate understanding. These forests have been home, their whispers, the stories of my youth, but the vast expanse of the ocean. Now, that's a different narrative altogether. Growing up inland, the beach was always an occasional luxury, a destination. Thus, the vast, fathomless ocean became my personal boogeyman, an entity I rarely encountered, and hence feared. Yet, isn't it fascinating? The very fact that it petrifies me is what gravitates me towards it. It's a paradox of emotions, where terror meets wonder. In my reflections, the forests and the oceans intertwine in a beautiful dance. Both are segments of the vast canvas of nature, each singing its own melodic yet haunting tune, narrating tales of wonder and woe. As the tide brushes against my legs, there's a palpable realization. The woods, the oceans, they're elements of a grander design. An enigma we are yet to decode, mysteries that exist, regardless of our perceptions, fears, or beliefs. Venturing into these terrains, especially the unfamiliar like this ocean, aids in preserving the raw emotion, the genuine trepidation associated with the inexplicable tales of the missing 411. The essence of these stories isn't just the missing individuals or the perplexing circumstances, but the vast, untamed force of nature itself. This force acts as a constant reminder of the unknowns that lurk in our world, challenging our understanding and often our bravado. So whether it's the comforting embrace of the woods or the intimidating depths of the ocean that unsettle you, remember, it's all an extension of the same ineffable entity. As we journey through this series, attempting to unravel the enigma of these mysterious disappearances, perhaps we'll inch closer to understanding the cryptic dance between man and nature. Realistically, closure might remain elusive, but the pursuit of understanding is a journey in itself. My nerves are fraying as I stand here, perhaps even trespassing beyond permitted hours. The haunting silence, occasionally punctuated by distant footsteps, keeps my heart racing. Yet, I persevere, compelled to share these tales and feelings with you. If you've accompanied me this far into my narrative, I extend my profound gratitude. Your company, even in this virtual space, offers a semblance of solace against the unnerving backdrop of the night-shrouded ocean.